Hi everybody. I'm Barbara Thoreau and I'm wearing many hats today. But I always love to talk to people about book clubs. I meet with lots of different book clubs to suggest books to read, to suggest things to be discussed. I'm a member of two book clubs. One is lovingly called the Book Club That Does Not Read. Because we get together once a month for a potluck and one member of our group gives a book report, which has been delightful. And then there's another one that we meet and democratically decide what kind of books to have and what we want to do. But before I get into some new possible book club selections, and I also have a handout, that's why I said it debuts. These are books that are coming out in paperback in the winter season. So if you have a book club that plans ahead or thinks ahead, these might be some things. And I think most of them, first page, there's two that don't have a publication date, but they're usually October through like maybe next March. And I'll talk about some of that. Other people on the panel, because we have an exciting concept that's going to be talked about. Just 1 year ago, right?
1 year.
1 year ago, Suzanne Miller had a great idea
Well, we don't know about that. She had an idea.
to put together a cyber book club. So she's going to tell you about setting that up, I assume, and some of the many things they went through to choose books, and all over the world, the people that are being part of it. And Judy Blunt is an author who has become very much a part of Suzanne's book club. So she's here to talk about it from an author viewpoint. So you can find out about putting your book club out there. And where there is kind of the discussion going on all over the world. And I'm just going to turn it over to you to go ahead and come over here and sit down.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. If you don't have a handout, it's over here on the little red table. Just take one, please. And this is really my PowerPoint, but I'm just going to read from the paper. You can have a takeaway. First of all, this is a cyber book club based on my cyber ranch. Now, I know, what the heck is a cyber ranch? And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But I'm going to start with the book club, and then I'll go to the cyber ranch and come back to the book club. All right? So let's just talk about the cyber book club. The concept is to connect readers across the globe with books, authors, and or literary experts for facilitated discussions in a safe internet environment. Okay? And the way you do that is, number one, the readers are all part of my Dunroven Ranch CyberNet community. It's called days@dunroven.com. And the books are, the books, the authors, and the literary experts come via Judy Blunt. I don't know how I found this wonderful woman into helping me with this endeavor, but she did. So we put our heads together last year, and she suggested 4 books. This was our first time ever with this kind of concept. And we had no idea how well this was going to work or not work. But she was willing to try with me, and in fact, it turned out that it was a lot of fun, and people are anxious to start again this year. So we have, a literary expert, and I think that's a really important part, because the people who are drawn to this like to know that these are good books. This is good literature. And so these were books that Judy had suggested, and this first year we focused on Western women, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But so basically we had 4 books, all right? And we connected the books and the authors and the literary experts with these members of mine on days@dunroven.com via my live web cameras, which are at Dunroven Ranch, or via Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is like Skype, all right? And to facilitate the discussion, we really had 3 people involved, 3 different hosts. Judy was the content host. She really worked at lining up the authors, bringing additional material, helping facilitate the discussions from a literary perspective. We then had an online host who was a research librarian from Princeton, New Jersey. And her job was to communicate with the members intermittently and get their opinions and their questions to develop a discussion guide that we then used when we were in conversation with the author, either on site at Dunrovin or via Google Hangouts Skype. So there were three people involved. Judy, the content host, Diane Hoffman from Princeton, New Jersey, was the online host, and I was the ranch host, i.e. Miss Technology, making sure it all comes together, which is an odd role for me to be playing, but I have, gurus around who were able to do this. And the whole concept really is predicated on a safe internet space. And the only way you can secure a safe internet space is to charge money. And I know this because I'll tell you why in a little bit, but I have web cameras and I've had over 1 million people watching. And when I didn't have a subscription, let me tell you, it got bad fast. There are a lot of trolls out there. There are people who are looking for trouble. And they will jump on your site and they will create trouble. So the only way you can secure a place on the internet is to make it gated. And so give me a credit card. I want to know you're a real person and that you're going to treat us and each other with respect. And that's, the whole thing is predicated on that. You can't have good, frank discussions if people are afraid of bullying or afraid of some troll coming in and making really off-color remarks. So that's a key element in all of this, okay? So here's the basic format that we followed, and I apologize for the small print, but you've all got your reading glasses on, and you can keep on. You may have noticed that the slides go from down on the left and then down on the right. They're all numbered, so just go from slide to slide. So this is the way the club functioned. At the beginning of January, Judy and I announced the 4 books that would be read. And then each book was dealt in the same way. 10 days after we were going to start a book, and we started with Judy's Breaking Clean. So 10 days after we started that book, the online host, Diane Hoffman from Princeton, New Jersey, held a scheduled chat session. And what does that mean? If you haven't been on the internet to chat, a chat is very conversational. You type and it comes right up. And so Diane would get on and she would seed the questions, seed the discussion, and she would take notes. So people would, want to know about this, that, or the other. And people were at different places in reading the book. Some had finished the book, some were just starting the book, and some were, halfway into the book. But they would sort of focus in on various themes and discuss those themes. And then 10 days later, that would occur again. She would have a second chat session. And these generally ran for about an hour to an hour and a half. And she would take notes on all the questions and comments that what we call the chatters made regarding the book. And then that became our discussion guide that I would email. Diane Hoffman would put it all together. And I would email it to Judy, and Judy would email it to the author. Or in the case of her book, she got it herself. And then we would hold a live session in my family room with a live stream camera. And Judy would come. Oftentimes in the middle of the winter, it was blowing snow, and we would sit around this round table. You'll see a picture of us there somewhere eventually. And maybe it's already there. If you look on slide 4, look on slide 4, the little photo. That's us in my family room, all right, Judy and I. And Diane would call in on a cell phone, and we would plug her in, so everybody in the internet cyberspace could hear Judy, they could hear me, they could hear Diane, and if we had a guest speaker, they could hear that speaker. And then Judy's role during that session was to, again, keep track of what the chatters were saying. And at the end of our discussion, using the discussion guide, she would say, well, chatters have a couple questions, a couple additional questions or comments. So people living in nowhere land got to participate directly with the authors and with people of Judy's stature, analyzing what the book involves. She has real stature in my mind, not just physically, I might add. And people loved it. ended up really enjoying it. Here are the 4 books that we did last year. The first one was Breaking Clean by Judy Blunt, All But the Waltz by Mary Clermont Blue, The Jailing of Cecilia Capture by Janet Hale Campbell, and Claiming Ground by Laura Bell. And these were all focused on different women's experiences in the West. And part of the reason that we chose those is if you look at the demographics of the people who are on my site, the majority of them are between the ages of 40 and 70. They're highly educated. 67% have a college education. 40% have more than a college education. That means a professional degree or an advanced degree. This is a highly educated group, primarily women across the country. Okay, and here's just a quote from one of our participants. I thoroughly enjoyed the DR Book Club. I was dubious about how well a book club online would turn out and was very pleased. The books covered material new to me. I am an Easterner, although some of the life situations had universal application. It was very special to hear the author discuss their work in conversation with Judy and Suzanne, answering their questions and ones submitted by some of us chatters. I also enjoyed the background material that Suzanne provided, especially that concerning Native Americans. And all I really did was relate some of my own personal stories during various chat sessions of interactions that I had had on various groups across Montana. For example, a couple of years ago, I participated in a sweat lodge on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and it was a really profound experience to me, so I shared that. And people liked that because it added depth to what they were reading and added understanding. Anyway, she says, it was fun to hear the ideas and impressions expressed by my fellow chatters. I can hardly wait for the next book club to begin. And this is a woman from New York City, okay? So we've decided to push on.
We have.
And we are going to be looking at books that concern exploration, at both interior exploration and exterior exploration. And Judy has helped select, actually she suggested all of these and has contacted the authors or people who know the authors or who are able to speak about the book and about how it was written and the author's thoughts. Indian Creek Chronicles by Peter Fromm, Fool's Crow by James Welch, Arctic Dreams by Barry Lopez, and The Refuge by Terry Tempest Williams. And we will start this in January. Our book club runs from January, 4 months, 4 books, January, February, March, and April. So we have a book a month for the 4 months. And I'm going to take a pause here now, and I'm going to tell you about my cyber ranch, because this is within the context. And in fact, I want to take this book club to a broader perspective within that context of my cyber ranch. So let me just say, I'm a biometrician. Mathematics is related to biological problems, who opened a guest ranch for whatever reason I can't tell you. I just love horses, and I love the back country, and I love nature, and I knew quite a bit about it from having worked for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game and many natural resource agencies. So I started this guest ranch, and the scientist in me, and my husband's a PhD in wildlife biology, got involved with the University of Montana's Project Osprey. They put a web camera above the Hellgate nest to study the impact of mercury, and they needed a control river, and the Bitterroot. We're on the Bitterroot, and we had this enormous osprey's nest over our arena, huge osprey's nest. So in 2011, we put up this web camera with the University of Montana, and I had no thoughts of doing anything besides just enjoying the science and working with the scientists in it. So the first year, we had several 100,000 people, and by, I think if you look at slide 15, by 2012, we had 285,000 people watching. By 2013, 782,000 people watching, and they spent 54 million minutes, so each person watched a long time. And I went to turn the camera off, and people said, no, don't do that. We want to watch your ranch. And I thought, well, so get a life. What do you mean you want to watch my ranch? I just couldn't believe, why would people want to do this? Well, it just so happened at that very time I became critically ill. And that took me from the outside and put me in the inside. And so I thought, well, here I am with all these people who want to watch my ranch, I better chat with them. So I formed a focus group. This is the researcher in me. And I had a focus group of people all the way from England to Hawaii. I had 38 people, and they worked with me for over 6 months. And all I did was have a conversation with them, asking them, what is it that draws you to watching this web camera? What exactly is it? And I found out a couple of things that I think are really pertinent. And I'll come back to books and put the books in this context. But they said they're really interested in real stories about real animals and real people that are happening in real time. This is reality TV that's real. I mean, it's not scripted. Nobody's editing it. It's happening. Nobody knows. I mean, I would tell people, I get up in the morning, this is in the winter, and I say, tomorrow we're going to do X, Y, Z, right? Well, tomorrow morning I have 9 inches of snow. I'm not doing X, Y, Z. I'm doing something entirely different. I have a horse that is fallen. He's on a sheet of ice. My ranch manager's out there trying to get him up, and I'm on the camera, and I said, I better go out and help. I take AstroTurf out there, and I put the camera right on it. I take my AstroTurf out there, roll the horse up, put the AstroTurf underneath him. He gets up, and I'm a hero. You know, because it's real time. And this is not something that happens in their backyard. We in Montana don't understand what a unique and wonderful place we live in, and how much people can get by just participating vicariously, by watching and by talking. And those are the two elements that really are important. Real time, real things happening, and the ability to share it with other people. This is not sitting by yourself at a computer. You're sitting there with people you now know all across the United States because they are chatting about the same thing and watching the same thing. And there have been some incredible friendships that have grown up out of these people. So the other interesting thing that I found out from my focus group was I asked them the question, are you interested in Montana travel laws? He said, no, not interested. And I said, are you interested in traveling with me across Montana? Yes, we'll go with you. And I think about that. I mean, I was amazed at first, but then I got to thinking about it. I'll sit and watch my husband's slideshow until I'm blue in the face, you know? But I won't just go and watch any old slideshow. You want to know something. You want to know somebody. You want a curator. You want to know what you're getting. You want somebody that to hold your hand and who has a relationship with you. It's all about relationships. And these relationships can grow and can really flourish in an internet environment. Believe me, 5 years ago, if you told me I was going to be standing here saying this, I would have said you're crazy. Because I tried to keep my kids off the internet, thinking it was an isolating experience. But when you can communicate, and this is where social media has really opened things up, and live cameras, really has made a completely different environment out there. So that's a really important thing to remember, that they want to know people. They want to know the authors. They loved knowing Judy. They think of her as a personal friend now, even though she hasn't met any of them, but they think they know something about her. Yeah. Okay, so how did this all happen? Well, I put up a Nest camera, and the Nest camera, you know, lots of people, and I, after talking to people in my focus group, I decided to put up a ranch camera that could see not just the nest, but my other animals and other parts, and watch the birds from afar. Because watching the birds from afar actually has turned out to be extremely interesting, because that's when all the attacks take place. Mm-hmm. Eagles and great herons, and I mean, it's a lively place. And you can see some of the photos, slide 20, of what I take from my ranch camera. I mean, we have Halloween celebrations, we have horses that are doing all kinds of stuff, and people are really enjoying this. But when I went to do the ranch camera, I brought the wrong camera. Somebody said to buy this great Canon camera. And I usually use Axis. I had an Axis camera over my osprey's nest. They said, oh, you got to get this Canon. It's high optics. Well, high optics, but poor maneuverability. Very high optics, but very bad maneuverability. But I'd already bought it. I'd already put it up there, and I thought, well, I'm sort of stuck with it, but it's not working. So I brought it down and put another Axis up on top of the pole for my ranch camera, which meant I had a mobile camera, which is why the book club exists. I made the camera that I mistakenly bought. I turned lemons into lemonade, and I put a Wi-Fi tower on my ranch, and I now have set stations for my mobile camera, including in my family room for Judy and I. and it communicates directly to the web. So I now have this mobile camera, very high quality. I mean, they're really good. It's like a TV camera, all right? And my broadcast system can do things that are not only from the web cameras, but we can do things like videos for a virtual theater. People can all watch the same movie at the same time and talk, like going to the movies with somebody, except you're talking. It's not like going to YouTube where you click on and you're by yourself. Everyone's on, we have showings. We can do Skypes, we do telephone conversations, we have call-in programs, like a radio call-in. People call in and talk and ask questions. Okay, and our site, we have two kinds of users. We have a free site where people can just watch the Osprey's Nest, and then we have this paid community membership, and that's where the book club resides. That's where people get to talk to each other. You can't talk to me unless you become a member of the community. And again, you can't believe what we put up with when we didn't have a pay. And in fact, that in 2013 and in 2014, we were part of Cornell University's All About Village program, and we still have a link from their site to our site. And I've had discussions with people who operate web cameras all over the world, and they've all eliminated the ability to chat because it gets so bad. And you're either going to have some kind of a gate, or you're going to end up with something that's very disagreeable. So if you pay your small amount per month, then you can participate in all of our social media, and we have games and contests and all other kinds of things, all right? So what we try to provide is, there are handouts here on the table, ladies, if you'd like a couple handouts right here on the table. What we provide is what I call edutainment, and that is everything should have an educational component of some sort, but it's a soft sell. It's through literature, it's through books, it's through experiments. We've done school experiments, we do horseback training, we do all kinds of things, and the book club is part of that, what we call edutainment. And we had a great K through 12 science project in which I had 1,700 kids from Canada and the United States collecting scientific data from the Osprey's Nest, and we put it all together in a huge spreadsheet and sent it all back to the students. It was great. They all collaborated and they talked to each other. That's what this social media will be able to, it allows you to do. So, back to the book club. What next? Well, the first thing I had to do is make this whole thing sustainable, because it's you can imagine the amount of money I've poured into this unwittingly. But I think we're onto something, and I've recently entered into a partnership with some people who know what they're doing, and I don't. I mean, I love the content, I love the science, I love all of that, but I'm not a business person. But I've now hooked up with somebody who is a business person, and she's really helping me take this to a level that I think will be sustainable. And that brings us back to the book club. And I really think with this multimedia environment that we have through these through my broadcast system, we can use these books in a whole new way, if you will. So for example, when we read Indian Creek Chronicles by Peter Fromm, I'd like to have people from the local area submit photos of the Selway Bitter Wilderness area, start a gallery of photos. I'm going to do a Google Maps flyover. And I don't know if you've ever seen one go to YouTube and look up the term Arctic Tern, T-E-R-N, Arctic Tern. It's one of the best Google Map flyovers I've ever seen. Basically, they take Google Maps and they just fly over the area, and you can see the topography, and that's what I'll do for the Selway Bitter Wilderness, so that people from afar can see that visually. And then, you know, I would invite people who have their own stories of hiking and camping and exploring in the Selway Bitter to contribute them, so that it becomes a conversation as opposed to, you know, simply reading a book. The book becomes a springboard for a lot more depth and a lot more exchange of ideas and information. And then I was telling Judy, I just got back from a 2-week trip across eastern Montana, and I had a required reading list. One of them was Judy Blount's Breaking Claim. The other one was John Clayton's Carolyn Lockhart book, and then the third one was Laura Bell's Claiming Ground. And what we had done is we took my horses to Rygate, Montana, where we worked on a cattle ranch, and then we went down to Red Lodge and ended up in the Pryor Mountains in northern Wyoming near the Lockhart Ranch. So everywhere we went, the people who came on this had already read about it. And Judy came to dinner at my place and met all of these people. And it was so rewarding for the women to have had those books in that context, to travel through those parts of the country. And now I want to bring that Judy's book back and do some blogging with some photos about what we saw and what we encountered, that really her book was echoing in our minds. And I have a picture of the earless cow. She talks about the cow's ears freezing off. Well, this cow's ears froze off. His name is Ears. And I threatened to steal him because I liked the cow so much. I said, Dunrobin needs a cow. I think Ears needs to come to Dunrobin. And of course the rancher said over my dead body, or probably over your dead body, the much beloved cow. So here it is in reality. There's a cow out there that has suffered that very thing that Judy wrote about. And then we passed a couple of abandoned one-room schoolhouses that weren't your schoolhouse, but certainly reminiscent of it. And again, I think that just deepens people's understanding and deepens what they get out of that book. And I would also like to flip it over and bring books into other things that I'm doing in terms of the edutainment. For example, I worked on a lookout south of Butte, Montana for 2 summers, and I have lots of good stories about lookouts. And I belong to an association of people who worked on lookouts. And I know some people who did a movie about, lookout. In fact, the lookout that they chose to do was one that I used to take people to for a viewing of the night sky. And it's the West Fork Butte lookout right out here on the Montana-Idaho border. So I'm going to do a 6-week series about lookouts, and I'll bring a book into that. So that, again, I see the book as a springboard, but also the books coming in as supplements to other things that we're doing. And ultimately, I'm hopeful that this thing is going to grow to the point where Barbara is selling Dunrobin book packages internationally, out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could happen.
Oh, a lot of it can happen, and a lot of it is, there is this whole literary tourism kind of concept that's out there, which ties in much more than a book club. So
Yes.
I'll just interject that, but I
No,
want now
no.
to go.
Well, as you can imagine, it was the Suzanne's energy that has pulled this entire thing through the knothole that was my time constraints. And she asked me if I would talk about my book online, and that kind of grew into, well, what do you think about, so I sent her a list of women's Western books and said, well, here's a bunch that I know that would be good reads. And so from that, she selected 4, we collaborated on 4, and then pretty soon it was all for the next one. So I've been sort of dragged into the forefront, but I have been impressed by, this is a different audience for us. We are not doing cutting edge brand new books. We're doing the ones that have informed Westerners for a long time, and to the Eastern audience, they are new, and they are fresh, and they're alive, and they're interesting and important, and all of these things. We've had some really amazing discussions. The Jailing of Cecilia Capture, in particular, really got people going, because it's a very kind of a dark story about a young woman leaving the reservation, going to law school in California, and what she has to leave behind, and it's vaguely autobiographical. It's written as a novel, but the type people were totally unaware of what the reservation means from inside the reservation. And so for this year's book club, exploration and discovery, we're not going Lewis and Clark, well, except for Pete. Pete's book is all about exploration. It's about the mythology of frontiersmen. It's about his blind youth and taking on this project, and then discovering what it meant to be in the wilderness and what it meant to be part of that. And so it's a coming of age story, and that's a good one to start with. But we're moving right from there to what I consider the antidote for Lewis and Clark journals, and that's Fool's Grove. This is what it looked like from the other side when exploration and discovery was coming true for the white race. This is what was changing and ending for so many Indian peoples. And so I think that is a vital part of the conversation. This is an incredibly intelligent, well-read, they just haven't explored the West. And so they bring up intellectual questions and they talk to one another about intellectual issues. And so it isn't, oh, I like this or I didn't like that sort of discussions. We have some really sincerely meaningful, and then they'll want more reading lists. Can you give me, a list of 5 more books that I should read about, to understand Native Americans in the West today? And that's kind of put me to the test because Barb's the one you should be asking. So anyway, I'm a convert. I'm now a promoter as opposed to a reluctant friend. It's like, I put together the Writers Fall Opus, which is our creative writings fundraiser. Sorry, right in the middle of it now, I'm telling you. 9th of October, be there, be square. Anyway, Suzanne has always been incredibly generous in donating a trail ride or something for us to auction off. And so to begin with, this was like quid pro quo. Well, I'll do that if you do this sort of thing. That's how we kind of got dragged into the same, bailiwick. But we're loving it. So, and I really do believe that it has a place in the world. We think of, I don't allow my kids to do a book, swipe books. I don't media books because they spend all their face time in the class. I can look up and if they have their laptops, all I see is the top of their head. So they don't talk to one another. And so I believe in paper books. I believe in holding up the artifact and discussing it. But this comes pretty darn close to that in a virtual way. I would have never imagined I'd say that. But it's actually, they have more in common, it seems like. The people in the book chat rooms and such, then a lot of the book clubs I know gathered from just people from Missoula. And they seem to be more polite to each other because maybe they don't know each other personally. So that a lot of times statements, well, I could be wrong, but I have to disagree.
Well, but they still have that common bond of, as a book club, they've all read
Yes.
those books.
And they're excited
So-
to talk about it with someone.
Yeah.
Especially for the shut-ins. Suzanne was mentioning how many of our people have mobility issues or are old enough or isolated enough that this becomes a real thing to them. It becomes a very valuable source.
I think that's really an important part of it, is that many of the people, if you talk to them on a personal level, I mean, you have women taking care of 90-year-old fathers and they're homebound a great deal of the time, or you have people who are recovering for what, like I did when I started this. I never would have started this whole cyber ranch had I not been ill. I mean, I'm outside all the time. Suddenly I was inside for 7 months and I had the time, and then I got to realize the benefit and the beauty of it. Because if you are homebound, or even if it's just inconvenient, if you live in New York City, going to a book club can be a major endeavor. Not just around the corner. In Missoula, we move easily because we have a small community. Now, or if you live in, we have one member who lives in Briney, British Columbia. I mean, there are no book clubs in Briney, British Columbia. And one of our fervent supporters is a deacon with the Anglican Church in Canada, who lives in a tiny community up in Ottawa, and he's got his whole community going on this thing, because it's a way for them to reach out and connect with people who have like interests. And when you look at it from that perspective, which was totally new to me, believe me, it really makes sense. And it can be a beautiful thing. I get emails like you wouldn't believe. People telling me how important this is as a part of their life.
Well, I think it's an exciting endeavor and maybe gives you some fuel for thought. Do you have questions about what they're doing? Are you thinking of your own ideas of, well, maybe something that I do? Or I see some people out here who might be able to add some things as an expert on some sort of
You
a
know,
topic.
that's one thing that's sort of the market that's still kind of fresh to us, are local people that could speak with authority of place. We're talking to New York, we're talking to England, we're talking to Florida, or the other coast. And you guys have the authority of place. You understand a lot about these stories. Maybe you've already read them. But adding your voice to the discussions, and I had to, chide Diane a little bit, because one of the most frequent questions coming back for the women's memoir was it cathartic to write about this? And it's like, by the time you get to be publishing and composing your memoir and reconstructing it, no, you've got to be done with therapy before you start writing. and so that, so the voice from inside Montana would have been able to, add something to those discussions, I think.
I agree.
$4 a month, come on, it's a latte.
I was wondering, Suzanne, what sort of business expertise have you discovered that will take it to new possibilities?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm working with a woman named Amanda Laudingata, and she has a company that's spread out all over the United States. They do marketing and graphics, and they're taking my website is very functional, but very amateurish. I mean, I'm not a graphic designer, and I'm not a photographer, I'm none of those things. I've really just stepped in the back door on this. I mean, did not contemplate doing this at all. But our website is very functional, and we've proved the concept. And the nice thing about that is now the business people are interested in us because we've proved the concept. So now she brings to the table web designers, graphic designers, marketers, social
PR,
media
yeah.
experts, PR people. And we are just about to launch what we call our version 2.0, which is going to be way enhanced from anything I could have developed. So she's, I'm the content queen. I'm the boots on the ground. And the viewers view me that way. I mean, if there's a big racket at the osprey's nest, I hear it. I run out with my binoculars. I swing the cameras around.
What is your vision for the book club?
Pardon?
What is your vision for the book club?
My vision for the book club is that it grows and continues. And like I said, we use it as a springboard for a more multimedia exploration. And I think that this is an opportunity to connect people with Montana on a lot of different levels. And the more connected they are to Montana, the more that, it comes in their head to come and visit, to buy things from Montana. I see it as all positive. And a lot of these people know they're never going to come to Montana. I mean, they don't have the wherewithal or the physical abilities. But that doesn't mean they can't support us in other ways. But a lot of them do come to Montana too, by the way. Diane, the woman from Princeton, New Jersey, just had to come. And she went out to lunch with Judy and I. She brought her daughter and her granddaughter. I had people drive up into my driveway and say, well, I've been watching you for 2 years. I just had to come and see the nest on my own. In fact, I did a survey, again, the biometrician in me. I did a survey, and 40% of the people who responded, and I had 387 people respond, said they are making plans to visit Montana.
Well,
That's huge.
That's good.
And there's a Dorothy Patton's new book
Yes.
on the osprey nest. It has the webcam.
Yep.
And the same sort of thing. It's reporting on how they set up the webcam, what they did, and programming and doing things. And then we put a fact and fiction link on that webcam site and on the website. And so it's just amazing what can happen within Montana and promoting through books and going on to do a place. So then I'm going to jump in here in the last. This worked out pretty well for me. No. In the last kind of 10 minutes, and I will pass out. You can pass them back that way. And this way I won't. I almost didn't get this done when I sent. This is a short 3-page list instead of sometimes I have 7 and 8-page lists. Back in Fiction puts together a list of suggested books for book clubs. And what I did with this one, I just put together last night quickly. The whole front page and several of the others. The front page are all authors that are here at the Montana Book Festival. American Copper is coming out in November as a paperback original. And I tend to, for book clubs within Montana and within Missoula, people usually like to have a paperback. Although I have to say, in the age of ebooks, it's been very interesting, people who can't wait to read things because they're going to go download it as an ebook. And then the people in the book club saying, well, I just can't wait and I don't want to have the ebook, I want to buy the hardcover. We have sold this year's example, It's All the Light You Cannot See. So many book clubs decided they were going to read that because they were hearing about it. And this is a Boise, Idaho author. So they were hearing a lot about the book and they wanted to read. They weren't going to wait. People said, okay, we can do the ebooks, but still more people buying and purchasing it within a hardcover. I still don't know when it's coming out in paperback. We did ask Anthony Dyer if he would come to the Montana Book Festival. He couldn't come this year, but we're going to approach him again and again. And then Onyx Smith has a new book that's coming out as paperback original, Crossing the Plains with Bruno. And we do have copies of that will be on sale tomorrow. The publisher sent us an advanced shipment of it, and then it comes out in late October. So a lot of these aren't yet in the paperback. Black River, I think Sarah's reading today and again tomorrow. This is a book that's set in Montana. Black River is the name of a town, a song, and a penitentiary. So it's very much modeled after Deer Lodge. And a man's coming back after being gone for 20 years. And he has his fiddle, his wife's ashes, a note from the parole board, and a gun in his truck. So that's all of it. Alexander Fuller's latest in paperback, Leaving Before the Rains Come. She's from Wyoming. She was hoping to have been here as part of the Bear Grass Writers Conference, which is another exciting thing that's starting up and going on now in Montana also. The Jaguar's Children is John Valiant's novel. He was the all-campus read this year for the Tiger, and he spoke Wednesday night, which was a fascinating talk. This novel talks about immigration issues. There are Mexicans coming across the border in an old tanker truck and the things that go wrong. The Plowman just came out in paperback. Kim Zupan, that was his first novel that came out last year to wide acclaim. It's one of those that I say, it's not for everybody, but it's beautifully written. It's a tough topic, lots to discuss. The Secret Game, this you're going to start hearing about in another couple of weeks. There are hardcover copies right there in the corner. This is about a basketball game, and you're going to say, oh, basketball. It's a history of basketball. It's kind of a boys in the book, because The Secret Game was a basketball game played in the early 1940s. A all-black team from a Negro college and the Duke Medical School white team played in North Carolina. There was one non-member of the team and the coaches that were part of it, and it was the coach's daughter. It was totally kept secret because they knew nobody would condone having a black team play a white team. One member of the Duke Medical School team was Dr. Jack Burgess, who lived in Helena. He was an alum of the University of Montana, played on the Grizz basketball team, And he was very instrumental in convincing his teammates to play this game, because he grew up on the High Line. And he knew about playing reservation ball, doing the whole thing. It's a fascinating story. It's, and the author's going to be here for homecoming. So that's going to happen, but then the book does come out later on in paperback. So that's why I'm doing that. And then there's two others, The Secret Wisdom of the Earth. That was one that came out every year. Independent booksellers do some choices of top, what they call indie picks. So they're debut novels or nonfiction. It's been exciting because it's only happened the last kind of 3 years. The first year, I don't think there were any Montana books on it, but Bad Luck Way was one last year. Painted Horses was one, which is Malcolm Brooks' book, and Black River was one again this year too. But The Secret Wisdom of the Earth was one last winter, and it's coming out in paperback in January. It's a coming-of-age story. It's a young boy and his mother who go to live with a grandfather after something tragic had happened within their family. But he's then finding out, he comes from Ohio into the South and into the coal country, so he's finding out about coal mining and some of the things that happen in that town. And then The Song of Hartgrove Hall. This is going to be your feel-good to read right after Christmas and before Downton Abbey comes on. But what it is, it talks about song gatherers, people that would go across England, and that's one part of the story, and collect the stories from all the songs that the people sing. So it's the first novel that I've seen that just talked about that. But it's, you know, there's a love story, and it's saving the old homestead and doing all those kinds of things, but a lot of fun things going on there. So that's the quick course. And I try and have these come out twice a year, keep them printed out within the store. They're all done on PDF, so if you don't live in Missoula, we know how to send those to you via email and do those sorts of things. So I think people will be around a little bit to discuss if you have other questions. And
I have one more.
yeah,
Before we go, I was involved in the book club, and I live here in Missoula, so I highly recommend, you don't have to live out Easter in Hawaii or something to join. It was extraordinarily entertaining. I too was skeptical about how it was going to flow because I felt a little awkward with chat rooms, but having the commentator kind of handle the chat room made it so easy to use. And they are right. The discussions that arose from everybody's point of view coming from so many different parts of the country, the different perspectives of just happening was so fascinating. It really opened your mind up to seeing people's viewpoints from other perspectives. So I highly recommend doing it. $4 a month. It's a major bargain. So thank you. I had to throw that in.
What kind of equipment do you need to have to access the book club? Do you
Just a
need to
computer.
have a Skype
Yeah, you do it on your,
machine?
no, just your computer.
iPad,
iPad, on your cell phone.
Anything to get you on the internet.
Yeah, yep, just get on the internet.
Yep.
And then is there a certain time of the day that you do it, or?
Well, what we do is we have a calendar on our site. And I would suggest you wait till my new site comes out. Again, I'm really working hard on this new site. Join at 1st of January, and we post the time for everything. There's an ongoing calendar that says, you know, we even post when we feed our horses because people love to watch it. You know what I mean? People love watching the horses in the wintertime all run as a herd, and it's quite the sight. Yeah, but it's all there, and anything that's coming up will be on the website. And that's days@dunroven.com. But I wouldn't join yet until November. Yeah. It'll be a whole new ballgame. Thank you.